Hey folks, this is Riker, and some of us got a secret glimpse at the future of Diablo 4. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the D4 patch that got undeployed this week. We'll also talk about other gaming news like more layoffs from Microsoft, Valve letting Visa and Mastercard boss them around, an update on the legal drama with Subnautica 2, and more. As always, timestamps can be found in the description below, and remember to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes. Now we'll kick off the ARPG news with a word from this video's sponsor, Torchlight Infinite, whose new season just began on July 17th. This season is titled Outlaw, and it features a high-stakes in-map mechanic. While running endgame maps, you'll encounter convoys carrying loot. You want that juicy loot, so you're going to intercept the convoy, they're going to start running off with the loot, you're going to start beating them up, that's going to summon reinforcements, and the faster you beat them all, the more reinforcements come, and the more loot you get in the end. And some of those convoys are going to have jackpot cargo in them with extra rare items. Now, the more convoys you attack, the more you increase your crime rating. Higher crime rating gets you access to black market bounties, and the higher your rating, the more and better bounties you get access to. Black market bounties are optional objectives for you to do while you are raiding convoys, something like defeat X number of elite enemies in a certain amount of time. Completing these bounties are going to give you extra rewards. Now, from these convoys, you'll also be getting tower coins, which is the seasonal currency. The highest tier bounties require that you put down a deposit of tower coins, and if you fail, well, you lose the coins. If you succeed, you get the coins back plus interest. What else can you use these coins for? To finance a vault raid. This is the boss run of the season. You are racing against time to open as many strong rooms within this bank vault. Basically, the more that you open, the more the difficulty ramps up as there's guards, until eventually you summon the boss, the chief security officer, you beat down that guy, and then you get into the huge Scrooge McDuck vault. Heist missions can also reward you with these new gambling items. There's a variety of them for different things, which offer some very high stakes mechanics. For instance, you can consume one of these gambling items on a stack of your currency. Maybe you're going to multiply that into multiple stacks of currency, or maybe you lose everything. Some of the gambling items can also be used on items to modify them in unpredictable ways. You slam and pray that you turn into a god tier item and not a pile of brick. Now, the season theme is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole lot more coming with the season, including a new hero trait for Erica, explosive escape. It's perfect for fast hit-and-run melee playstyles. They're also adding something called sequence crafting, which is basically a socket system with a bunch of new socketable items that'll give you over about 200 different permutations of effects that you can get, and some of these will actually replicate the effects of legendary gear. So give the new Torchlight Infinite season a try. Click the link in the description. It is free to play on Steam, crossplay with mobile devices, and as a reminder, they did add co-op. Moving on to Diablo news. Blizzard dropped patch 2.3.1 for Diablo 4 this week, and let's just say it didn't go smoothly. The update was meant to bring balance to the force. Balance changes and buffs across the board. But when it rolled out on July 15th, players, especially console players, started to immediately, or almost immediately, report a slew of bugs. We're talking lag so bad your character is teleporting all over the screen, game freezes, crashes, even suddenly missing expansion content. It was so bad that Blizzard almost immediately reverted the patch, rolling the game version back while they fixed it, and they ultimately redeployed a couple hours later. Seemed to have resolved most issues, at least. Then, to smooth things over, Blizzard extended the Gift of the Tree event as maybe a kind of apology. This is a limited time event where every time you turn in your Grim Favors, you get an extra mystery cache, and this is going to run until July 22nd. Now, the patch brought a lot of great changes. In particular, Barbarians got a lot of love. We went over all those changes in last week's video. But some folks have been noticing that some streamers were posting cryptically about a meeting with the D4 devs about the future of Diablo 4. Wudijo posted, quote, "Last night, some people, including myself, got a glimpse of Diablo 4's future. Take all the stuff I've been complaining about for the past 1.5 years and imagine I actually felt heard." Lucky Luciano posted, quote, "Just got off a call with a Diablo team on upcoming changes coming to Diablo 4. keep an eye out because they have been cooking and have a lot planned. Warlog TV posted, quote, "Look forward to a lot of stuff coming. Let's hope it pans out the way it was discussed. Super excited and actually makes me want to log in." I've been asked if I was a part of this meeting. Yes, I did see the presentation on the future of Diablo 4. It is clear to me that the devs understand the frustrations of the community and they have many plans to address them. We'll have to wait and see how those plans work out in practice, but in theory, we are on a road towards positive transformation. Now, outside of this, Pez Radar replied to a tweet asking if we can expect to see some of these updates in the upcoming seasons or if they will only come with the next paid expansion. He said, quote, "Upcoming seasons for sure." Now, one thing that is public, if we're talking about specific details of what to expect, is that a skill tree rework is on the way. Colin Feiner told IGN that they want to separate customization and power growth between the skill tree and legendary aspects so that the skill tree feels more meaningful again. He wants the skill expression seen in legendary aspects like twisting blades orbit around you now. He wants that to be in the skill tree rather than on items, and let aspects just be more about giving power. So the tree customizes your build and your gear powers you up. This way you're not waiting on getting specific gear drops just to get your build online. You do that in the tree. Now I'll end the Diablo 4 section here with some tips for people trying to farm up sparks to craft their mythics. Since legendary runes are so rare without trading, slam crafting at the blacksmith seems the only way to really get mythics now. So you know that you get a spark at the end of your season reputation track, and you can do that on as many characters as you want. When you make a new character to do the reputation track again, you only have to do the first seasonal quest to unlock the reputation track. You don't have to keep doing the seasonal quest line. So once you've done the first one and you got the reputation track, just go grind elites and bosses wherever you want. Infernal Hordes is probably the best option here. Just pick all the elite and Hellborn choices. Now, how are you folks feeling about Season 9? Are you still playing? Are you done with the season? Did you not even try it? Sound off in the comments. Moving on to some industry news, let's catch up on the Microsoft layoffs. As a reminder, on July 2nd, Microsoft laid off over 9,000 employees, hundreds of which came from its gaming division. Well, apparently 9,000 wasn't quite enough. They missed a few stragglers. Up to 20 employees were laid off from Raven Software this week, which is a Call of Duty support studio. You know, Call of Duty, the franchise whose latest game was record-breaking, with a new game coming out in the fall, franchise that continues to make growing profits for Activision with no signs of slowing down. That franchise, yeah, definitely needed to lay off more employees. Now, as you'll remember, as part of the Microsoft layoffs, or during the same time, ZeniMax's unannounced MMO was cancelled. Now, a union representing the developers working on the project, as well as working on the Elder Scrolls Online, has spoken up, and they confirmed that no employees were laid off due to the cancellation. Yet. The union is bargaining with the company over what the future of the employees working on that MMO will be. And it does acknowledge that there may be layoffs in the future, but that if there will be, they're going to do their best to ensure that those laid off will be able to, quote, depart with dignity. Now, this project has reportedly been in pre-production since 2018. That's 7 years of work, including building an entirely new engine from scratch. Now, just last year, things were supposedly going well, and the team was preparing to ramp up to get into full production. Still, though, 7 years of pre-production, that's a lot. Tack on another minimum 3 years of actual production, and this is a game that would be at least 10 years in the making. Now, a good idea 10 years ago is not necessarily going to fit in today's gaming landscape. It sucks for those working on it that the project got canceled, but it doesn't sound unreasonable to cancel a project that hasn't even reached production after 7 years. Especially if the rumors were true that the project was to be a sci-fi looter shooter. It's a niche genre that has not seen a lot of success recently. Just a lot of failed entries trying to chase the Destiny formula. We also learned this week that the 200 layoffs at King, the makers of Candy Crush, Microsoft owned now, well, reports are suggesting that they helped build their AI replacements. Level designers and copywriters specifically were cut as AI tools were built to handle these jobs. These reports are coming courtesy of mobilegamer.biz. And it's worth noting that King purchased AI firm Peltarian in 2022. And a year ago, the head of King's AI labs told GamesIndustry.biz that King was using AI as a playtester that could judge level design and recommend tweaks. At the time, he said, quote, "We see this as a co-pilot for designers. It's an assistive tool." And he insisted that they will still need designers. Yeah, I guess all you need is one level designer and the tool replaces the rest of the entire team. And speaking of AI in gaming, in some Steam news, a recent study from Totally Human Media, I guess you know they're not AI, this study shows that 7% of all games on Steam now disclose the use of generative AI. That may not sound like a lot, but it's a huge leap from just 1.1% a year ago. And if we zoom in on 2025 releases alone, it's even more dramatic. 1 in 5 games this year released on Steam have disclosed AI usage. And of the AI usage, the vast majority of it is to generate visual assets, which probably explains why so many indie game covers on Steam have that telltale Mid-Journey look to them. But onto the much bigger controversy with Valve this week. Valve updated their publishing guidelines and confirmed that they've begun removing certain adult games from Steam. And not because they decided, hey, this is our storefront, our platform, and we don't want to sell this stuff, but rather because payment processors like PayPal or Visa or Mastercard forced their hand. According to Valve, quote, "We were recently notified that certain games on Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors and their related card networks and banks." In other words, if Visa or Mastercard doesn't like your game, it's gone. Now, this came after Australian activist group Collective Shout sent a letter to major payment processors, pressuring them to drop support for certain games that depict sexual content involving abuse or minors. And while we don't know for sure that they are the reason this happened, it was really coincidental. It was shortly after they sent this letter that over 50 adult games were delisted from Steam, with that number continuing to grow. There's even reports that some innocent games got caught in the crossfire. No adult content in them at all. So following this, Valve now openly states that developers cannot publish, quote, "content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors." That's a brand new rule in the developer onboarding guide. And while in this case, the specific content being removed is, stuff most people probably aren't going to line up to defend, it does raise the alarm on what this means in the long term. Because here's the thing. This isn't about whether you like or you dislike adult games. It's about who gets to decide what's available to buy. And right now, it's Visa and Mastercard. And I don't think I like the idea that payment processors get to have that power, especially if they're prone to being lobbied to ban this or that. Oh, what's that? You're banning games that could be deemed offensive to certain religions now? Ah, goodbye Diablo, which depicts angels and demons and hell. But what do you folks think? And what do you think the solution here is? Sound off in the comments. Because to end the Valve news on a lighter note, Valve president and all-around swell dude Gabe Newell appeared out of nowhere in an interview on a tiny YouTube channel hosted by Zalkar Saliv, where he described his daily routine as, quote, get up, work, go scuba diving. He says he's technically retired but still works 7 days a week just because he enjoys it. What a life. All right, now let's follow up on last week's Subnautica drama because things are getting even messier. So, super quick recap. Krafton bought the devs of Subnautica for $500 million, and they promised another $250 million as a bonus if Subnautica 2 launched in 2025. Now, Krafton fired the 3 founders, this happened last week, and they delayed the game to 2026. They basically claimed gross negligence or belligerence on the part of the founders to get the game in tip-top shape for release, and that the game is in no state for a 2025 release. So we left off with the news that the founders are suing Krafton, but we weren't sure for what last week. This week we found out that the lawsuit is about the $250 million payout. The plaintiffs allege that Krafton deliberately delayed the game's early access launch to avoid triggering that payout. According to the complaint, Krafton pulled key marketing plans, they backed out of partnerships, and they ghosted crucial pre-launch responsibilities. And when none of that worked to delay the game, Krafton fired the 3 co-founders, allegedly without cause. And as per their contract, Krafton wasn't allowed to fire them unless the founders committed serious misconduct. The complaint argues that none of that happened, and that the firings were just a way to take over and delay the game without owing that massive payout. Now, this is a huge case of he said, she said at this point, because Krafton's story suggests they did have cause to fire the founders. Lawyers are going to have to argue this one out in court if it's not settled out of court first. But here's where things get even murkier. 2 slides from a leaked internal review, confirmed as real by Krafton, showed that Subnautica 2's early access build was way more stripped down than expected. Fewer biomes, fewer creatures, fewer modes. One of the slides bluntly concluded, quote, it is necessary to reassess the release timeline and roadmap. Basically, as per this review, which was conducted in May, the game would be launching with a far smaller scope than initially planned if it were not delayed. The leaked doc claims the game was planned to be 30% complete back in early 2023. And as of mid-2025, it still hadn't reached that 30% milestone. So, if the statements on this slide are true, then once again, he said, she said, the founders can argue that even with a smaller scope, it was ready to launch into early access for 2025 as per the schedule, and, all those other features that could be added later. But Krafton could counter that launching with anything less than the planned scope meant it was not ready. And in fairness, releasing an early access survival game in the year 2025 with bare bones features and just a single biome, you can get away with that maybe in 2014, but our standards are higher today. And we've seen plenty of games with great potential launch too soon into early access and then just fade into obscurity. Now, part of me, the conspiratorial part of my brain just kicking around, it wants to entertain the idea that Krafton forged this fake internal review slide, leaked it themselves, then they put out their statement about the founders' incompetence, all just to avoid the $250 million payout. But that's just crazy, right? Like, so many employees could just testify in court that the slide was fake, that the founders were doing their job, that the game was ready. But what's your take, folks? Is Krafton protecting Subnautica 2 from an early access disaster, or are they just trying to avoid a payout? And we'll finish up with some quick Donkey Kong Bananza news. The game released this week, and critics are going bananas for it. What? Donkey Kong Bananza is Nintendo's first major release for the Switch 2, and it's already a hit. On OpenCritic, it's sitting pretty with a top average score of 91 and a full 100% of critics recommending it. Only 10 games have gotten a score of 90 or more so far in 2025 on OpenCritic. On Metacritic, it's comfortably landed in the top 5 best reviewed games of 2025 so far. And the praise is glowing. I've seen it called the best 3D platformer ever, a must-play for Switch 2 owners. I've seen the story getting praise. I have also seen, however, comments that Super Mario Odyssey was better. But I mean, what is better than Super Mario Odyssey? Now, have any of you folks gotten a chance to play the new Donkey Kong? Do you plan to? Sound off in the comments. Because that's going to wrap up this week's video, but do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed Diablo 4's infinite damage bug. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.